Hi, and in this video we're going to take a look at this question to do with pivot tables. Now, test 1, first question, using the file pivottables1, summarize the data to show the sum of sales by a salesperson for each make of car. Here's the file. Now before we start, let's have a look at the data itself. So the data is what we call good data. And so the first thing we should be doing is turning it into a table. So Control T and enter. This is now a table. You'll notice we're now on the Table Tools Design ribbon, and this gives us a chance to summarize with pivot table. The good thing about this is the pivot table is now referring to the table range, which means if data is added to the table, when the pivot table is refreshed, it now refers to the table range, just like it does there. We don't have to change the range of the source data. We're going to put this on a new worksheet and we're going to say OK. Here's our pivot table. Now if we go back to the question, we'll see we want to show the sum of sales by salesperson for each make. So I want it by salesperson and I want by make. Now what I've done is I've put the salespeople across this axis and the makes down here, simply because if these were the other way round, the makes would go beyond the scope of my screen. And I want the sum of price in here. So this tells me how much each was sold for. So the sum of sales or price by salesperson for each make of car. And that's what we have here. The next part of this question is to create a chart of the summarized data on a dashboard sheet with slices for month and region. So what we do here is we click inside and we say pivot chart, and we'll just use a default chart, and we can move this onto another sheet. So we can go into the design and say move chart, and we can move it to an object in. Now we don't actually have a sheet here that we can put it on, so before we do that we can actually create a new sheet. Now the question asked it for this to be called dashboard, so if we go back here and this new sheet that we've just created, we'll call it dashboard. And this chart here, when we now move the chart, we can move it so it's an object in our dashboard. Here we are on dashboard. I'm just going to line it up so that it's nicely aligned with the cell edges. And what I also want is I want slices for month and region. So I can come back in here and I can say analyze, insert slices for month and for region, and click OK. And I'll just reposition these. And again, what I'm doing is I'm holding down the Alt key so that they actually snap in to edges of cells. And there we are. This is now showing summary by month and also by region. Okay, so that's answered number 1 and number 2. Third one is format any amounts of money with a pound sign, no decimal places. So I'm going to go back to my source. In fact, I'll go back to the pivot table itself and I'm going to right click inside here, number format, and I'm just going to choose currency with no decimal places. Now you'll notice it's applied it to all of the fields in here, and that's because I used the number format rather than format cells. If I'd used format cells, it would have only done the particular cell that I had selected. If I go to my dashboard, you'll see the currency setting has now also fed through automatically. Let's have a look at the question. The last thing is to save your work as your name -pt1. So I'm going to do F12 and there we have it. That's the first question completed. So here we are with the question number 2, and we started off saying using the file pivot tables 2, summarize the data to show which salesperson has the best success selling to older customers. And this is the age grouping field. So this is our file, pivot tables 2, and we want to do another pivot table. So Control T, turn this into a table, and summarize this pivot table. We'll put this on a new sheet, just like we did before. Now again, we want salesperson. This time I'm going to put them in the vertical axis, because what I want is age grouping in the columns. Now you'll notice that actually my over 55s and my 46 to 55, this is what I would consider my older customers. So I could put a filter on here to just include those 2 fields. I could equally have put the filter on here, or in any other number of ways. Now at the moment, if I drag price down into there, it would by default give me the sum of price. I don't want that, but if I drag a text field down into here, and I'm just going to drag in make, it tells me how many of each sales were made. So this is a count rather than the sum. Now straight away this is telling me that Mary is better at selling to both of these 2 age groups, and what we can do in order to highlight that is I can simply click on here, select those values there, and just do some conditional formatting. So conditional formatting, top bottom, I'll say top 10, I actually just want the top 1, and I'll make it green. This is now highlighted the one that is the best, irrespective of how the values will change. So if the data changes, this will still be highlighting the highest one as it is then. Okay, let's go back to the question. Create a chart to demonstrate this, showing how many sales made by each salesperson per month for each customer age groupings. So now we're going to use the month as the filter field, and we want to do pretty much what we've done, but we don't want to have any filters on there. So we're going to actually create another pivot table down here. So I click in here, Table Tools, Design, Summarize the pivot table. This time I want it to go in an existing worksheet, and I'm going to put it underneath. So again, salesperson, age grouping. Now we have determined we want the month down in our filter field, and let's just put make down there, but now we can see them all. I can now change the settings here, so manually, in other words, I can drag items to rearrange them. So now I click OK, and I can now take that item and drag it so my under 25s, 26, so these are now all in order. And the question was asking me to create a chart to demonstrate this. Now I've done this with a pivot table, however I can very easily just convert that into a chart. And just for ease, I'll put this immediately over the data. And again, you'll notice that these are sorted correctly now, and this is showing me for each of the salespeople their success rate, and I can filter that by month. That's answered number 2, and number 3 for making sure the age groupings are correctly sorted. It's now asking for another chart to show how many sales were made by make of vehicles. So how many sales per salesperson by make. So I'm going to go back to my data, summarize the pivot table, existing worksheet, I'll put it down below. So salesperson, I'll put them there. By make, count of model, tell me how many they've sold. And this is what's being asked for. How many sales were made by salesperson by make of vehicle? And this is what we've got. So how many sales each salesperson made by make of vehicle. And once more, this is asking for this as a chart. So I just put this in as a pivot chart. And I'm going to resize that, just so that it's the same size as the other chart. Now we're being asked to move both of these charts to a new sheet called report. So the first thing we're going to do is make a new sheet, call it report, and I can simply go back here. I can select both of these at the same time holding down shift. I can cut and go to my report sheet and paste to put them both in. Because the cell widths, column widths are slightly different, I just need to resize these very slightly. And again, I'm holding down the Alt key as I drag those corners. Now the other thing I was asked to do is to put some slicers on. So report slicers for month and payment method with connections to both charts, and remove the existing month filter. So I'll do that first of all. If I remove the existing month filter, simply take it off there. And instead of that, what we're going to have, I'll just hide that so I've got some more space here. And instead of that, what we're going to do is we're going to use a slicer, and just check what the slicer is for month and payment method. So for month and payment method, and we want these slicers to work on both of my charts, but I'm just going to position it first of all now. At the moment, this is only affecting the one chart, report connections. It's only working on pivot table 2. If I tick pivot table 3 as well, this will now be affecting both of these charts. If I do the same thing for this one, report connections, pivot table 3, both of these will now be affecting both charts. Just going to shrink this down slightly, just so that everything can be seen, and that makes much more sense as a report sheet. Let's see what else they've asked. Move both sheets, connections to both charts, remove the existing month filter, and save as PT2. So that's all I need to do now. F12. I'm going to save as not OXP21, OXP22. And that's all there is to that one.